Hi, friends. Welcome to episode 6 here at Hungry for More. I'm Robin. This is Jennifer. We're laughing because the last cut, I just introduced myself as Jennifer. So we're off to a great start.
Yeah.
And actually, we really are off to a great start because we are speaking today about the third mind hunger, emotional eats. And it's ironic. We're here today together because we both had crazy stuff going on this week, a lot of emotions, some heavy things going on with some of our kids, life, right? And even when we were set to record our call on Thursday, my computer was having major issues.
We were about over halfway through and it just crashed. I'm like, okay,
and you
are a sign.
I know. She was catering a wedding, like we had, booked full weeks.
Busy stuff.
Yes. But here we are and we're okay. We're emotionally okay.
We survived it. And it's good that we knew how not to how we knew to listen to our body and not eat from our emotions like times have passed, or we would be bringing on a whole new problem at the end of this week. So
for sure, the old us would have been in the stuff. So let's talk about that today. So emotional eats are probably the most obvious when we tell people, okay, if you're not eating for hunger, there's probably another reason why we're eating. And I think most people would guess that it's the emotional eats. But I didn't think I was an emotional eater. I imagined the person sobbing in the closet, going through the Oreos, but it's definitely that, maybe that is part of it, but it's so much more than that. Like, I know boredom for me, boredom is an emotion when you feel bored.
Well, yeah. And it's the same thing. I think we tend to think of those sad moments as emotional eating because we see that portrayed on TV. It's like, oh, you're sad. Here's a quart of ice cream. It'll make you feel better. Or, I recently had a friend who had a death in the family and I went to their house and their counters were covered with food because it's a comfort thing, right? People feel comfortable if they don't know how to help. And so they bring food and vice versa. But the flip side of the emotions is I was an emotional eater, but not so much for being upset and things like that, but pleasure, like, oh, it's a really happy moment. Let's get something to make it even happier. So I was an emotional eater like that, which was a little bit different. So it's funny because there's boredom, there's sadness, there's all these different emotions and they all fall under emotional eating.
Absolutely. And it is the spectrum from the worst feeling that you're wanting to get away from, the dull ones like boredom, that's not that intense or terrible, but it's one we tend to want to avoid. And then even we call it hyper rewarding the good feelings. It's like, it's not enough for us just to feel excited and happy. I remember 2 examples that pop up was we were test driving a new car and our whole family was with us. And of course that's exciting. And we were all so excited about this car we were in. And while we were on the test drive, I thought, oh, let's go to the drive-through and get something. And it wasn't anything to do besides I was feeling excited and I wanted to make the moment more special.
Right.
This doesn't mean there's no place for food, for celebration and that sort of thing. But when you think about it, between all the celebratory things and all the little things in between our brain wants to celebrate, like test driving a car, that's what has us overindulgent in the celebrations.
Right. And you think about, and I, oh my gosh, I had 6 kids in 9 years. And before I was a conscious eater and knew all of this stuff, it was like, oh, you're sad. Here's a lollipop. Oh, you're getting your haircut. Let's keep you distracted. Like I was always giving my kids, things, for when they fell down and got hurt or when they were upset, or I definitely was that mom who did that. And leading into the next part of what we want to talk about, I want to just tell you a story. Last year, I got a call from one of my children at school and they had been having a really bad day and they wanted to come home. And I could tell it was like, I was not talking them off the ledge on this one. And so I went to pick them up and this particular child said, it would make me feel really good. See if any of you can relate. If we went by Swig and got me a soda and at the Utah, flavored soda shop. And I was like, no, that's just going to buffer how you're feeling. You need to come home and really feel the pain of what just happened and be upset and work yourself through it. We don't need to just disguise it where it comes up later. And I was patting my back for that one because that wouldn't have always been my answer. In the past, I would have been like, let's go do that.
That's going to make us feel better.
Yeah. But because I now know, and it turned out a lot better. And the interesting thing is this particular child moving forward, I have seen them recognize that and be like, okay, literally say, I just need to cuddle and cry. Okay. You know what I mean? And it's just very interesting how that comes out.
Such a valuable lesson that I too, saying things that's just a newer way of being for both of us since becoming more conscious in our lives and of course, more conscious in our eating.
Right.
And why is that? First of all, I always want to point this out. The message here is you never drive through and get a drink. That's not the message, but why was her daughter wanting a drink in that moment? She wanted to use
Numb
the
the
words
pain.
buffer, right?
Numb the
She
pain,
wanted
yeah.
to numb the pain, avoid the pain, get something of pleasure in the brain that gives us a sense of being, not having to be fully with that feeling. And that's what it does. We do get kind of that break as far as having to be with the full impact of how we're feeling in the moment. Let's talk first about why we do this. So I think we've done a good job kind of saying, emotional eating is not just the horrible, terrible moments when you're just, so sad. And for me, the more intense the emotion, I don't want to eat. And I've heard the same from other people.
Super far,
that anxiety and stuff, and you're going through some
right.
really hard things. But for all those things in the spectrum that drive us to it, whether it's the negative emotions or the positive, what have we been taught, or what are we taught in society that you do with emotions, especially the uncomfortable ones?
Well, one, we were taught to really hide them and bury them down deep. One, because it makes other people uncomfortable. They're like, whoa, what do I need to do to help you here? Two, it's not comfortable to feel those emotions.
Yeah.
It's our mind would like us to just feel happy all the time and to not really get through that.
Right. Because, energy, that's what emotions are, energy and motion. When they don't move through you, when we don't just leave the channels open and allow them and process them, which your body knows how to do beautifully. It's that we get in the way with our mind, holding on to it, resisting it, suppressing it because we don't feel like we can express it. Then that energy makes a place in us. It literally gets stuck and stored. And so then that's why you're walking around with this little thing that right now might not be a big problem. And then something happens, someone says something to you and it reminds you of that, and those emotions come up again. So we're taught to avoid, to resist. We're taught that negative emotion means something negative, something's gone wrong, something's wrong with you, something's wrong with your life. And that's the most important thing to understand. If you want to stop emotionally eating, to understand that our negative emotions, the discomfort of those, are not dangerous to us. We were meant to be able to experience them. That is why we're even here, to have this human experience, is to experience all of the emotions. We need the contrast of emotions so that we can understand what joy feels like. We need to understand what pain feels like so that joy, we can say, oh, I know that experience. I have something to compare it to. So the whole human experience is literally about feeling. If you just walked through life and had no emotions about it, you wouldn't know what experience you were having. You would just be existing. So there is a place for all of them in the spectrum. And your body knows exactly what to do with them. And we teach a lot about this in our program. We have modules that teach how to actually process one, because again, you don't learn in kindergarten, here's how to process an emotion. We just learn, oh, go change it, do something about it, or be quiet. We don't want to hear it right now.
Right. Or literally, like, here's a specific experience that I had this week. What happened, or how do I get through that? It's very interesting. So we've had them, we get it, and we understand that. So, but what do? Okay, so we're talking to people right here and we're like, how do we stop this from happening? This is the third mind hunger. And I feel like it's one that people can really relate to. Everybody, sure. I feel like, is like, I'm an emotional eater, but the first step, obviously, is what we've been teaching with our other ones. It all comes down to the same thing. It's pausing, asking yourself if you're hungry. It's our conscious eating practice, like literally before you put anything in your mouth.
Yes. At first, when you're becoming a conscious eater, it is the first intention is, before I put anything in my mouth, I'm going to bring consciousness to it. I'm going to be aware of why I'm wanting it in the moment. So that practice, exactly that. Before you reach for something, we're pausing. We may still eat. We don't know. The pause is there just to let us come to present time awareness. What's going on with me? What is my need? And if the body says, sorry, it's not me telling you to eat, then we know it's the mind. And it's going to be for one of three reasons only: either the damn eats from 2 episodes ago, conditioned eats, or the emotional eats. So then what do you do when it's revealed to you? Oh, it's because I'm anxious right now. And it's right there. You see what's going on and you're like, oh, it's because I'm experiencing anxiety about the situation. What's the next question that I'm putting on the spot?
She is putting me on the spot. Well, the next thing I would be like is, what do I actually need?
There you go. Yep. Good job. We know this, we could say it in our sleep, but sometimes when you're here on air and you get put on the spot.
You know why I was thinking about it before you go on. Earlier this week, I had been in and out of Insecure in the emergency room and up with a sick child. And it was on Monday. I was in the kitchen in the afternoon and I was just like, I don't know, I was eating just like nuts and celery. I was just like meandering from thing to thing, even though they were all good, healthy, whole food, yummy things. And my child said, are you actually hungry? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I packed everything back and I literally went and took a 3-hour nap. I needed it.
That's the need that was being expressed.
That was the need. I was like, I really struggle being conscious when I'm overtired.
For sure. That's a very common thing for sure. And sometimes, now that she's taught her child how to be more conscious, they're going to call you out. They're going to help you out with that. So what, I want to back up just a little bit. We've talked to you about we'll come back to more of this practice and what to do. But I think it's important to recognize the role that food has in it. It's easy to access, and it does give you this chemical response so that you don't have to fully be present with the emotion. So if this is something you do, please understand there's nothing wrong with you. Number one, we've normalized this. We've been taught this is how you handle things, and that food is a great solution for it. And so, but why not just take one for the team? What is wrong? Not wrong, but what are the effects of emotional eating that maybe is creating more stress for us? Because if it truly solved the problem for you, right? Your daughter's example where things were going on at school that were just horrendous. She was continually getting hurt. And why not, if the drink or whatever is going to help you avoid it, is it actually going to solve that problem for her?
No, it's not. And the flip side of it is now, I mean, we could talk about it with eating or with the drink. The problem's still there. Yeah. And maybe you don't feel good because of what you just ate, or you're like having regrets.
Yeah, you pile your own judgment, you punish yourself mentally on top of it. So you have the problem.
And it just goes on and on. Yeah. I mean, it can be from a week long of just emotional eating. You get to the end of the week, the same issue is still there. The same emotion that was driving that is still there. But now maybe you've overburdened your body, because remember, if we overburden our body and we really are overeating and eating outside of hunger, then our body has
more stress,
be more stressed. Physically stressed. It's just kind of a cycle there.
Yeah. And we miss out when we run to the outside thing. In this case, it's food. Okay. When we go to that thing to escape how we're feeling, we miss being present with what's going on for us to be able to see more clearly about our lives, for maybe there's a change I need to make. Maybe there's someone I need to reach out to and get help with something, right? We miss out on the actual solution. And sometimes the solution is just that life is happening, and right now there's not really anything I need to do about this. I just need to allow myself to feel it. And that's what I have found with negative emotion or discomfort. Rarely is there an action that needs to be taken. Something that's actually needs to be done for me to solve. I may think there needs to be action.
Unless it's a nap.
Yeah. Yes. But, sometimes we think there's action to be taken because we're wanting to control the situation and the people in it, but rarely does that work. And a lot of times it's just life is happening, life is going on, and maybe our feelings are hurt about something, or we're anxious about something. And we just it's not that something has to be done. It's that we need to learn how to just sit and hold space and be with that emotion and allow it to go through, because again, that's just part of being a human.
And feel it. The other thing I was going to say, the flip side of this, because some people may be going, well, it's my daughter's birthday, or we're going out for graduation dinner, and it's a happy emotion. So let's explain to them, like, how you differentiate between the two, because it's not no forever. You are going to be going to the drive-thru to get a drink. You are going to be having these foods. You are going to be having celebratory food sometimes, right?
Right.
And that can get a little bit confusing.
Yeah. What we teach in our philosophy of coaches, we're not here to try to coach you to never want a treat ever again. Yeah. That's not what it is. But when you become aware, it's all about awareness. When you become aware, you clear out so many of the things you're eating and reasons you're eating that once you become aware of them, you're like, that's not even what I wanted, or it's not a big deal. That's not important to me. It's just a habit I got into, or it's just, this is the way I learned to deal with boredom. Boredom was to get crunchy crackers and chips from the pantry. Once I realized that, I was like, oh, I don't want to eat when I'm bored. That doesn't make sense to me. It's not even that fun. And I'm not hungry. I'm not going without anything. And so it was so much easier to let that go. Does it mean I never had those crackers ever again? No, it's just that I now was using them in the right purpose, was for true hunger.
And when you want them.
Yeah. So let's do talk, like you mentioned, like you brought up, about the celebratory, the happy moments that we're using food. This is what we do in the coaching. And just last week, one of our members was saying that she's recognized this was one of her main overeating was for the happy emotions. And at first she was kind of nervous when she started with us, because she's like, I do like to use food to celebrate the moments.
Right.
And she's like, I'm not sure how this is working. We just said, just keep bringing awareness, keep doing the pause, keep bringing awareness to it and then decide then, do I still want to move forward and celebrate this moment? Or can I just realize that's what's going on and I don't really need or want the treat anyway? And just last week, she reported, oh my goodness, first of all, I did not realize how often I was eating for that, which goes to show she's a happy person, and that's awesome.
Right.
She feels positive emotion a lot, but she didn't realize it hasn't been that hard to let them go, because when she just saw it for what it was, she didn't necessarily even want it in the moment. She recognized it was just this automatic loop in her brain to reward with food.
Yeah. And the other thing I love that she said, is it's been weeks since she's felt overly full.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a great thing. And you
Yeah.
think about those moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I love that, because there's
Yeah.
so many times where you just feel so full. You're like, okay, I overdid it. And you walk away. So to go weeks without feeling that, as
Yeah.
she's learning to listen to her body, I thought that was phenomenal.
Yeah. That all comes with that. And it's not that you're depriving yourself of anything. You're just stop overeating is the first order of business that we take care of. And it's these 3 mind hungers that are always going to have you overeating. So once you start seeing them and solving for them, you don't overstuff yourself, you don't overfill, you don't overeat, and you have that sense of going to bed feeling light and not feeling like I remember feeling like I just had this heavy rock in my stomach going to bed. I would totally overfill all the time. So as she started to see, you clear out the events that really aren't that important to you. It was just more of a habit, so that the events that do matter, you do enjoy those, but it's not so much of it. Remember, like we talked about in the very first podcast, what is our environment when it comes to food? It's abundant. Yeah. What's our environment when it comes to pleasure food? It's abundant. It's always coming at you. And if we just say yes every time because we feel like it, then we're going to be in the position we're in right now, where we are.
Well, and for me, I have to really decide what a special occasion is. Like literally every day of the week is somebody's birthday. It's somebody's this, it's somebody's that. It's right now we're in May, right? Mm-hmm. Graduation here, graduation there, choir concert, orchestra concert.
Right.
Like, so for me, I learned that it's actually not really enjoyable to go out and do it every single time.
Yeah.
It's like, it kind of takes almost the
specialness of it, maybe, or the novelty of it.
Because it's always available. It's that abundance and it's there all the time. There's always a reason to celebrate.
Yes, for sure. Well, and one of the examples that, pre-recording we were talking about is when my daughter and I have a favorite show, and when they aired, it takes forever for them to drop a new season. And one day, this is right when I was just stepping into conscious eating. It was still a very new practice for me. And she said, Mom, they released the new season. And my first response is, let's grab a cookie and a swig. And I just was like, wow, hold on a second. I was like, that's so interesting that was my first go-to thought. And of course it was. That's how I celebrated those moments. But also I learned to just step back and be like, okay, I'm wanting to reward. What am I wanting to reward? Go to the original emotion you're feeling, the actual authentic emotion you're feeling. And I was excited. I felt connected to my daughter. And yeah, it was mostly excitement and that connection, that special thing we have together. And I've learned to ask myself, okay, that's what I'm actually feeling right now.
Right.
Can that be enough? Is that enough for the situation? And so many times it's like, yeah, that is enough. Let me just revel in that feeling instead of now hyper rewarding it. Not with emotion, we're hyper rewarding it with a pleasure chemical. So it's not even that we get more emotion from the food itself. It's just the chemical response in our brain makes the connection of like, oh, I was happy when I had that. That food makes me happy. So yes, seeing those things, and that's exactly what our client is doing. Seeing those things, she's able to differentiate what does want to be celebrated with food and what she doesn't. And when you know that when you do want to celebrate with food, that it's not a cheat, it's not this dramatic thing that you're like, yes, I'm going to enjoy it, then you are fulfilled by it.
And it's so enjoyable.
Yes.
And it's not followed with everything else. And it works. It works.
Yep. So we're going to cycle back through and wrap this up with how to stop eating emotionally. Now, we're just scraping the surface as far as teaching you this is the solution. But of course, in our membership program too, we teach how to feel a feeling because we don't learn that. So I hope this has been a helpful overview for at least for you to understand how to catch it, and for you to also just know that negative emotion doesn't mean something wrong and something bad, and it's something you need to get rid of, and that you can open in and lean more into those. And just think, like, what if I just let this be here? What if I just breathed while this emotion was here instead of doing something else like eating? Just give that a try. But recap of the conscious eating practice. Before you want to eat anything, you're going to ask yourself,
am I hungry?
Is this my body asking? Is this my mind? Oh, yeah, I'm feeling anxious right now. This is what's going on. And then when you recognize that it's an emotion, you ask yourself, okay, then what is it I need.
Yeah. And what can I do to solve that need?
Yeah. Sometimes it's truly just be like, sit here with me while it passes, right? Most of the time it's just, can you just let it be here and run its course? But when we ask ourselves what we need, the body is communicating so many needs to all of our needs to us are communicated through the body. And we have more needs than just eating, but we tend to use food to solve many other needs that have nothing to do with food. So when you can ask yourself, it's such a beautiful, sincere question. Some of my favorite moments in our coaching calls is when we're going through this, when somebody recognized they had an emotional eat, and we take them through the practice again. And we ask, if you were to have asked yourself, instead of eating, what do I need right now? What did you need in that moment? And it's always the most beautiful things that, I needed comfort. I needed to reassure myself. I needed to have my own back.
Escape.
Yeah. I needed to go and breathe and regroup. And so when we can see our true needs and meet them with the thing that's actually being asked of us, man, that's self-care and self-love at its finest.
Absolutely. And if you ask yourself that question and you're hungry, you can meet that need too.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, by all means, don't second guess yourself.
Right. Food is the solution for hunger. Provide that for yourself. But if not, ask those questions and it will be revealed to you in real time, really what's going on with me. Yeah. And it's a beautiful practice that goes beyond we say it beyond the plate, right? Yes. To be able to pause and say, hold on, before I react to this, what's going on? How can I help myself? And a lot of times that changes the trajectory of how I'm going to behave in the moment. So yeah. Anything you want to say more about emotional eats?
No. What I will say is it takes a little bit of a minute, I think, to recognize them and to get into the practice. So be patient with yourself as you try to do that, and it will come naturally. And eventually you'll just realize that all of a sudden you're not eating for emotions.
Yeah.
The more you practice, it's that whole over and over again. I always think of Simon Sinek. He says, you could go to the gym one time and see no change and then you quit. Or you can go over and over and over and over, and over time the changes happen.
Yeah.
And you just kind of have to stick with it and keep trying.
Yeah. It's a conscious practice. It's a loving practice, and it's a daily practice that accumulates, and it will serve you in the most beautiful ways. So thank you for being with us today. If you liked this episode, please like and subscribe so you don't miss future ones. I know we'll be back to talk even more about stress eating and emotional eating. That will circle back around. But thank you for being here, and let us know if you started putting the practice into place and what you're seeing. For now, we will finish and say goodbye. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.